Dr. Ritika, Dr. Ritika, if you are thinking you are not audible. Bhatia Sahab, am I audible to you?
Yeah, you are, sir.
Oh, great. Dr. Ritika, you are not audible.
Sir, am I audible now?
Yeah, now you are audible.
Fine. Thank you, sir.
Oh, yes.
A very good evening to all dear panelists and participants. I welcome you all to today's session, today's webinar on cloud computing. We will just begin with the session in a few minutes from now. Our expert for this session, Deepak Goyal, Assistant Vice President Technology at Altran Gurugram, has already joined us. So within a few minutes from now, we shall be starting with today's session. Last few minutes, I request my participants, if you still have any of your colleagues who are yet to join, kindly request them to join fast. Sir, it is already 6. With your permission, may we start?
Oh, yes, you can start it, please.
Thank you, sir. A very good evening to all distinguished panelists and participants. Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Computer Applications and Management, BVI CAM, in association with Computer Science Chapter of IEEE Delhi Section, Consultants Network Affinity Group of IEEE Delhi Section, Life Member Affinity Group of IEEE Delhi Section, Inter-Society Relations Standing Committee of IEEE Delhi Section, Industry Relations and Site Standing Committees of IEEE Delhi Section, with the associations of CI, SAPA Society, IS Delhi Section, and IET Delhi Center, welcomes you all on cloud computing. Mark Benioff, founder, CEO, and chairman of Salesforce, stated that if what cloud computing is, I try not to get bogged down with definitions. I tell them that cloud computing is a better way to run your business. In the recent decade, technology has seen its quick transition from a novice to strong shareholder in the market. Technically stated, cloud is an application-based software infrastructure that stores data on remote servers, which can be accessed. The front end enables a user to seamlessly access data cloud using an internet browser or cloud computing software. It enables the users on-demand availability of computer system resources, especially data storage, cloud storage, and computing power, without direct active management by the users. There are service models of cloud computing, namely infrastructure as the service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Bedrock of Revolution 4.0, having a high degree of virtualization, significance of cloud computing is increasing every coming day. This webinar today aims to explore the all-around impact of the cloud computing and its related issues, especially pertaining to safe computing. I would first take this opportunity to welcome amongst us our distinguished panelists for the day. We are privileged to have amongst us a galaxy of experts. I would first welcome Professor Subrata Mukhopadhyay, Chairperson, Consultants Network Affinity Group, and former Chairperson, IEEE Delhi Section. I now request Professor Subrata Mukhopadhyay to commence this session with his welcome address. Good evening, Subrata sir. I hope I am audible.
Subrata sir is on mute.
Sir, I think he's
Subrata
still.
sir, if you are hearing us, please unmute yourself.
I transferred from the mobile to the laptop actually.
Good evening.
Because
Nice
laptop
to
was
hear
not
that.
getting connected. So I had to leave one and second one I took it. Anyway, Good afternoon or good evening to everybody, or maybe every namaste to all, because maybe people from abroad are also interested. This is definitely a timely topic, and after few gap, actually, I can say that I have again joined back. Definitely to encourage what we were doing since almost June 2020 and continuing with the webinar in the virtual mode. This is the topic cloud computing. Already a lot of things have been told by Ritika. Just to add, as I was going by, the simple definition is definitely large amount of availability of the resources in computer, storage, as well as computing, so as to get that, I mean, individual and business to have some cost saving, not bogging down with his or her own storage over there, productivity increase, speed, efficiency, performance as a whole. Of course, this has been eventually possible because of the internet, and the reliability of internet, of course, is there. So we can rather shift the huge amount of continuous computing to a remote place or a virtual place where we can do these things, and locally some other things can be done almost simultaneously to take the advantage. And accordingly, the developments have taken place in the public as well as in private domain. Private domain, maybe your companies may be maintaining with the servers and all these things to give these resources, whereas public, some people at a cost and all these things will be there giving this. Anyway, we'll hear from the expert today from Altran more about these things and the development at this present stage up to the state of the art. Over to Ritika.
I would now request Professor M.N. Huda, that and Management BVI Camp, to address the participants with his inspiring words.
Good evening to one and all. My dear all professional societies, amongst them Professor Subrata Mukhopadhyay. Other friends, Mr. Vyas, Professor Saini will be joining a little later in this program. A speaker of the day, Mr. Deepak Goel, my friend, Mr. Ajay, and participants from all parts of the country and abroad. I take this opportunity to welcome you all. The topic for today's webinar, this is 32nd webinar in addition to different workshop, faculty development programs, etc., which Professor Subrata has rightly said. We had started this series, online webinar series for spreading knowledge right from 6th of June, when Corona pandemic erupted and disrupted everything in and around us. The purpose of this webinar was to bring all possible professional societies available in the country at one platform, for a very simple reason that COVID-19 has disrupted everything in and around us. Learning, can we reach to our learners? Can we reach to our members? Can we reach to the professionals? Can we reach to those people who are interested to learn right at their doorstep with the help of the technology, and ensure that the kind of the disruption which has happened can be mitigated with the help of this motto of continue learning despite disruptions. And as part of that initiative, IEEE has supported in a big way, and this is 32nd webinar which is being organized. 3 more in the series in the month of March. Next 3 weeks have already been announced. That if you have not registered so far for those webinars, you are welcome to register for that. Next webinar in the series will be on 26th of February by Professor Manohar Lalji on disruptive technologies and evolving global society in 21st century. Next will be on 5th of March on quantum computing, a primer on applications and opportunities by Mr. Pavan Kulkarni from industry. And again, next, which has been announced today only, that is on 12th of March by Shri Vishal Geraji on digital transformation, next generation factories. That under the backdrop of Industrial Revolution 4.0, how are we expecting the changes to happen amongst all possible factories. My dear friends, change is the only way of life, and if we do not change ourselves, possibly the competition in around us, the external forces working around us, and consequent to this, the changing ecosystem will change us. And that's how I keep saying that let's change ourselves, let's upgrade ourselves, let's learn ourselves in a proactive manner, because if we do not change, if we do not update ourselves, possibly the changing ecosystem will change us. And that's how it is said that इंसान घर बदलता है, लिबास बदलता है, रिश्ते बदलता है, दोस्त बदलता है, फिर भी परेशान क्यों रहता है? इंसान घर बदलता है, लिबास बदलता है, रिश्ते बदलता है, दोस्त बदलता है, फिर भी परेशान क्यों रहता है? क्योंकि हम खुद अपने आप को नहीं बदलते. And that's how a great poet has said that उमर भर गालिब यही भूल करता रहा, धूल चेहरे पे थी और मैं आईना साफ करता रहा. Having said that, my dear friends, the message here is change is happening all around, and this topic cloud computing is again part of that change. Imagine around 200 years ago, when I read history, once upon a time there was a king who had their electricity substations, who had their security forces for their safety of class, etc., etc., who had their entire arrangement for water in form of wells, etc. But if I ask you that I have an electric substation, you will start laughing at me. Even if I can afford to have my own electricity substations, I will not be doing that, because the seamless service which different electricity companies, because of the facilities provided by the government, is being provided to us. I can just switch on the button and the electricity is available to me, and I need not to pay for the entire setup of the electricity. I need to pay only for that much unit which I will be consuming on daily basis, on monthly basis, or maybe on yearly basis. So this implies that instead of establishing the entire substation, let's avail the services which are available and pay for the services as much you can use. This is the change which has happened in daily life of all of us. Exactly this is what is a cloud computing for computer science people, for IT people, for engineers, that we need not to purchase our own hardware, we need not to purchase our own software, we need not to purchase our entire infrastructure. There are companies, the way electricity companies are there, who are providing services to us. There are companies, the way water supply, maybe the government agency or private agency, who are supplying water, tap water to our home. In the same way, there are organizations who will be providing cloud services to us, and using that cloud computing concept, we can get software on our requirement, we can get hardware on our requirement, we can get other services on our requirement, we can get entire platform based on our requirement, and we need not to pay the entire setup cost. We need to pay as much we use. This exactly is the change. The way which has impacted on our day-to-day life is going to impact in a biggest possible manner in IT arena as well. So let's be ready to understand that change. Let's be ready to understand the constraints related to this change. Let's be ready to understand how the industry is going forward. What are the concerns particularly related to security, etc., etc. And for that, none other than Mr. Deepak Goyal from the industry has been invited for this, and all of you are welcome to participate in that. You can put forward your questions in the chat. Dr. Ritika will be coordinating, and at the end of the session, she will be taking up the questions and will be posing before the experts, and the today's speaker, Mr. Deepak, will be answering those questions at the end of the session. So in between the session, whatever comes to your mind, whichever question comes to your mind, keep posting in the chat window. That's my request to all of you, and keep attending our future programs. I was also a little away since last almost 2-3 weeks. So now Dr. Ritika has taken care, and my team members have taken care of all the programs which has happened in my absence. And I will request once again that 3 forthcoming webinars have already been made live. So if you have not registered so far, please register for them. Thank you so much to all my friends. Thank you so much to all the participants who from different parts of the country and abroad have joined this program and have got confidence in our webinar. Believe me, in the month of February, in the month of January and February, we reduced the frequency of the program. and I kept receiving continuously WhatsApp message. Sir, this webinar used to happen on weekly basis. Why have you reduced the frequency and now having on alternate week, maybe twice a month, etc., etc. Please conduct this webinar at least once in a week, because we keep on upgrading our knowledge. We keep on enjoying this webinar. We keep on learning from this webinar. And the moment these kind of messages comes to my WhatsApp, it gives me so much of satisfaction. It gives me so much of happiness and satisfaction. I can't explain it to you. So thank you so much to all the participants who keep on waiting for this these kind of webinars. 3 more webinars on consecutive weeks have been announced. Let's enjoy those webinars by registering them. And thank you so much to all my friends, and a big thank to my friend Mr. Ajay, who always remain a kind of big support to me for getting speakers, for having to required discussions on finalization of topics, etc., etc. So thank you so much, Mr. Ajay. He always remained behind the curtain, but is a big source of strength to me. And thank you so much, Subrata sir, because IEEE right from June has supported this webinar in a biggest possible manner, and how we have been in a position to conduct these webinars so successfully. So thank you so much. We'll meet again. With this note, I would like to conclude that the entire process is to ensure we all professional societies and Bharati Vidyapeeth, along with the speakers, we are in a process to ensure that learning must continue despite disruptions. Help us take advantage of this platform, learn, because learning will only help us to bring in a light arena from an arena of darkness, will help us to come a knowledge-based arena from the arena of ignorance. And that's how a great poet has said, when there is a darkness, रात का अंधेरा होता है. When there is a knowledge, so दिन का उजाला रोशनी होती है. तो पोएट कहता है, उजाले अपनी आंखों में महफूज कर लो. Means keep power of knowledge as integral part of your personality, because there will be challenges in absence of knowledge. So the poet says, उजाले अपनी आंखों में महफूज कर लो, बड़ी दूर तक रात ही मुसाफिर हो तुम भी, मुसाफिर है हम भी, किसी मोड़ पे फिर मुलाकात होगी. Thank you so much to all my dear friends.
Thank you, sir. I would now welcome amongst us our expert speaker, Mr. Deepak Goyal, Assistant Vice President Technology at Altran. With over 23 years of industry experience, Deepak has worked across customers in broad range of technologies and is currently leading a team of product managers with a portfolio of products in various domains. Additionally, leading delivery and product strategy are some of his key engagements. In his earlier role, he has also worked as a business development leader in managing business operations and sales. He has extensive experience on new age technologies like the cloud, containerization, artificial intelligence, machine learning, IT service management, telecom, automation, new industry use cases, and is highly passionate about learning and sharing on technologies. Privileged to have you amongst us today. Very warm welcome to this session. I would now hand over the session to you and kindly request you to enlighten the house.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope I am audible, and I'll stop my video in case there's a bandwidth issue. So
No, you are absolutely audible.
Okay, thank you so much. So welcome all the panelists, and thank you for my introduction, Dr. Ritika. We did hear good things about cloud computing already, from Professor Huda and Professor Subrata. So thank you for already putting that introduction. So why we are here? I mean, we are already on cloud, right? So we are hosting this webinar. I mean, just to start with, we are hosting it on Cisco WebEx, right? So Cisco and IBM together created a platform called WebEx. This product is branded as Cisco, but IBM is behind the technology as well. And this is hosted on AWS, right? So we'll talk about what exactly the hosting is, what is AWS, how the things works. And I'll try to keep it to a level where we are able to appreciate how industry is moving. So everybody here, I understand that, they are from academics background, from various industry backgrounds. There are students. So we all hear about so many technologies, right? So I don't want to go deep into technologies because you are the expert there. I'm not the expert, but I will definitely try to bridge together that how these technologies are branded, how these technologies actually go the next step and they try to solve our day-to-day problems. Now, so I am here. My name is Deepak Goyal. I am Assistant Vice President, Technology. Even if, it is technology, I have, as Dr. Ritika was saying, I have played different roles as a technologist in sales and business, in technical sales, into service lines and so on. So let's start this. Just a minute. Let me see here. So what we'll do is we'll talk about cloud computing. We already heard few things about it. I'll give a little bit more perspective around what exactly what is the definition, and we'll not go into definition, but just to appreciate that where is it coming from and how does it match the technology that we hear day to day. We'll talk about different service and deployment models, and before that we will also talk about various popular applications that we use, what kind of what kind of infrastructure it uses, what is the problem that is actually resolved by cloud computing. It is just a marketing jargon, or is it something that it is giving you as a kind of a value. We will also talk about we have seen that many of us, when we actually want to move our applications, and this is actually an industry problem, that when we want to move our applications, which are legacy applications, onto the cloud, how do we measure the maturity levels? What are the things that we should take care of? What are the pitfalls? What are the benefits? Since we are here talking about cloud computing, benefits are there always. But we'll just try to see that how do we take care of any aspects that comes with security, that comes with the load or the peak loads or the business aspects of it, and so on. We'll also see some public cloud providers, right? Some of those popular names, and how they are placed in the market, what growth they are having, right? And some of the ecosystems around it. We'll just see how the things are moving in industry. We will also a little bit touch on containers, right? That is not the topic here, but I still wanted to have one slide on containers just to give you, what next. So we are talking about cloud, but then how do we move to the next level, right? And it's a vast topic. You can talk about containers for a couple of hours already. So we don't have that much luxury of time, but we'll just try to just touch upon that topic and see if that interests you. Software-defined network, I'm told that's a separate session. I'll just give a kind of a touch again, just to mix and match everything. But let's see how we go ahead. Now, what is cloud computing, right? I really, this particular slide would actually tell you that the cloud computing is no technology. It is not a technology. It's just a concept, right? And where this concept comes from, it comes from three main aspects that we already understand. What we understand, so when we actually read in the books, we talk about a lot of computings, right? Types of computings. We have seen what is grid computing, what is distributed computing. We have seen, what is utility computing, right? So the utility computing part of it, and what is utility computing? So it has a word called utility, right? What is a utility? Utility is what Professor Huda was talking about: electricity, water, right? Anything that we are using from day-to-day life, that is all utility. And how you pay that? You pay based on what you're using, right? You don't pay, of course, there's a fixed price to it. Anyways, you get a kind of anybody who has seen an electricity bill, they would have a fixed price and there's a variable price, right? How the fixed price is calculated? It is calculated on your assumptions that how much load you have purchased. So you have purchased a 5 kilowatt hour, 5 kilowatt of meter. Okay, there's your fixed price. If it is 10 kilowatt, there's your fixed price, and so on. So there's a fixed price to it. So everything is not variable. But the actual aspect of it, the beauty of it is that you pay what you have actually used, right? So that is where the concept is coming from. Utility computing is based on a kind of the utility model, the vertical industry model, where everything is not fixed, based on what you're using, you actually pay. And then there is another concept which is SOA, right? SOA is the computer science concept, which is service-oriented architecture. Now that SOA is also come from a tiered architecture. You remember when we actually do an architecture, what we do is there are three layers, right? One is your user layer, another is your middleware, and the third is your database layer, right? That's a tiered architecture. And that tiered architecture actually moved on to a service-oriented architecture. Now, the service-oriented architecture is nothing more than whatever you have developed, whatever services you want to give, and services in computer sciences, your services in terms of applications, right? So whatever you have developed, you want to give services out of it, which means that you want others to use it, right? And when you want others to use it, it becomes a service-oriented architecture where you have, you define certain interfaces that, my services or my application can be used this way, right? So the utility computer and the SOA architecture, the service-oriented architecture, combine together to create a brand of a technology called cloud computing. And the amalgamation of it is a third layer, which is SLA. Now, what is SLA? SLA is accountability, right? When you actually go to business, any technology, or any provider has to take an accountability. It cannot be just, okay, you start using my services, but I cannot be accountable for anything, right? The accountability comes as a basic table stick. So the SLA is your service level agreements, right? So when any provider combines these three bubbles, or I will not call it bubbles, these three aspects. One is a utility computing architecture, the utility computing concept, which is the business concept, the finance concept. Another is the SOA, which is the architecture, right, where you have the interface layer defined. And third is your accountability, that if you are using my services, I can be, you can catch hold of me if something is going bad to your business. If what I say, if I don't deliver, then, I can be penalized. I will actually sign a contract which says that, I will give you the services, this is the services. These three things combined together in industry is called cloud computing. It is nothing else. It is just a way you see IT industry, you see how a provider is giving you an infrastructure service or an application service. Right, so I've just tried to simplify things in the sense that, and believe me, when actually any technology comes out of the books and actually goes to the industry, it goes through a path, and this path is normally where, it has to create a market. So any technology cannot be just whatever it is, it might be a cutting edge technology. It doesn't get very successful until unless there's a market to it. There is a branding done to it. There is a need. It could be based on what are the pain areas in the market, but it is also based on what other providers are giving you as a solution. So when it actually goes to that level, cloud computing has been there for decades and decades, right? I mean, we hear about it maybe just 10 years or 20 years back, when things have actually gone to a different level, but these concept has always been there for so long. And then from an aspect of what are the values that this three together is giving you. So right now, calling it as cloud computing, I've still named it as utility computing plus SOA plus SLA, right? And then we will change it to that nomenclature. But what is the value it is actually giving, and what are the problems it is trying to solve? So today, as Professor Huda was also saying, that I don't want to pay for what I'm not using. I want to actually do it as part of what I'm doing with my utility vendors. That's perfectly fine. So that's why it is utility computing. But then I need to have all the kind of flexibility as well. Flexibility in terms of, okay, so scalability and elasticity is one area, right? Now, if I have an infrastructure which goes with my command that, okay, I need this right now. I mean, not from a perspective I speaking out, but from a perspective of what my application or what my workload needs. So my workload, or for example, you take an example of Gmail, right? So Gmail, or maybe Gmail is not the right example. Take an example of Cisco WebEx. Now, Cisco WebEx is being hosted on a cloud. Now, it is hosted on a data center. There are, for just as an example, if there are 100 servers which are servicing all the WebEx conferences that are happening over the world right now. Now, if there is one more a conference that is getting added, it's fine. You have the capacity, you can host it. But suddenly there's a peak. Suddenly, you have a pandemic, in situations like this, where all the people are virtually working, so Cisco WebEx, even if they are very big enterprises, they won't be able to grow their data center on the fly, right? They need to have real estate. They need to have, they need to buy or procure servers. They need to have the infrastructure, the administrative infrastructure to do it, and so on. And that scalability, that elasticity doesn't come on the fly. There is a lot of planning that goes behind. So, and Cisco, I'm giving an example which is kind of used by most of the webinars today, right? But then if you talk about small vendors who have a very small hosted application, which they are running on their platform, but suddenly if the demand increases or the demand decreases, so these are the kind of scalability challenges that they have. And if there's a vendor who can actually provide them, if there's a concept that can provide them the scalability, it is always a win-win situation for everybody. So this is what it is trying to solve. It is trying to solve availability, which is the concept like, you have something hosted, you are serving your customer, but in case that service goes down, and the service can go down because of many reasons. Maybe there's an outage, right? Maybe the network connection goes down, and all the users. So imagine if the Cisco WebEx server, which is actually hosting our conference, if that actually goes down, what would happen? We all will get disconnected. And what kind of user experience it would be? I mean, probably we'll think twice before coming to Cisco WebEx again, because we have so much alternative, right? So availability and reliability, these those two words actually goes hand in hand, but actually, there's a difference there. But that's a big thing for the services industry, where they want them to be available all the time. And they are mission critical, workloads that are working. Maybe webinar might not be a mission critical where human life is involved, but there could be a lot of applications running where something working on an aeroplane, or something connected together in a hospital, things like that, where imagine if things goes down, what could happen. So availability and reliability is one more area which the vendors are trying to solve using cloud computing concepts. Performance optimization, again, this concept has been there for so long, right? Parallel processing, distributed processing. I mean, these has been the word where we have heard about it for decades. This also comes along, right? This is one area where they have enhanced accessibility, portability, which is more like the web browsers. You can access your infrastructure using anything or any device, right? You don't need to have specific hardware. You don't need to have specific software on your desktop or application or your platform to actually access the cloud computing environment. So that is accessibility, portability. And then there's a manageability and interoperability. Now, manageability is I want to have control of how I manage, how I provision, how I configure my platform. So I don't want to give that flexibility or that that part of my management capability to my vendor. So there is where all these layers combined together makes a kind of a package which vendors like Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure actually provides you. So these are the areas which are very specific, and it is helping the industry to grow, and things are actually getting added and getting better and better. I did talk about this slide, how it has evolved. So as I was saying, starting with grid computing and then the utility computing, these concept has been enhanced to a level where we see next generation internet computing, or we see the next generation data centers. Now, why we call it as next generation data centers? Because these data centers are no more on a particular premises. You would not know that what server is serving you is in which part of the world, and it can dynamically switch. So today it might be in one data center in the East Coast of US, And in case things are getting overloaded there, or things are, based on whatever algorithm, you might on the next second, you might actually being served through a server on the west coast of US. So things are so dynamic, and that is why we call it as next generation data centers. We have evolved from a level where we used to have a mainframe, and the mainframe used to be a kind of a size which would actually take a whole room size. And from there we have come to a level where every second, it's so much dynamic that we even don't care. And apart from saying we don't know, we don't even care who is serving us, because we know that what we have signed as a contract, we will be served based on that contract. My performance, my throughput, my the time to perform, all this will be governed by something that I already am aware of. And that is what I need. I don't need to be aware of how am I being served, what goes behind it. I just need what I have to pay and what I as a user would get, right? That is what the cloud computing is actually making, creating the value out of. Now this talks about a little technology. How actually the cloud computing, the first and foremost, has evolved as a technology, right? I did say that it is not a technology, but there are underlying technology concepts that actually enables it, right? So traditionally, we used to have an architecture where there's a hardware, and then we have an operating system, and then there's applications running on it, right? But the virtualization portion of it, and this virtualization actually dates back to 1980s, 1990s, when IBM actually came up with the first operating system, which they call as virtual machines, right? So from there, this concept has actually evolved. So we have so many vendors actually giving you that virtualization now. But what I'm trying to say here is that virtual architecture, where the hardware is the same, you have a layer around it, which we call as a virtualization layer, which we also call as a hypervisor, right? You might have heard about this word. So the hypervisor is the wrapper around the operating system, or even around the hardware, which is actually giving you slices of that hardware, right? So earlier, when I have a laptop or when I have a server, one user can use it, the second user can use it, the third user can use it, but they all are using the same server, and they can see each other's data. They are served by the same infrastructure. Here, what is happening is each hardware can be sliced and diced into small chunks, and these chunks can be dynamically expanded and contracted, right? So these these apps and OS that you see, these are the virtual machines. You can create various virtual machines on a particular hardware, and then even you can dynamically, as I was saying, you can dynamically provision it. You can actually expand the virtual machines as well, which means that one hardware and hardware, the capacity and the capability of the hardware is expanding as well, right? So today we have multi-core servers, we have a different kind of hardware layers that we have, the GPUs, the different CPUs, which have immense power. So to leverage that immense power, one user cannot do it. So the virtualization concept is helping this expand to a different level. So that's what it talks about. Okay, so what does cloud computing benefits? We did see that what are those benefits, but let us go into some more concepts that we have here. The user gets the flexibility. The user gets the disaster recovery. Now, what is a disaster recovery? Disaster recovery is when it actually goes hand in hand to high availability that we did see in the earlier slide. High availability is a concept where if something goes down, I have another server which can take over, right? But it is localized. So if you have two servers in a data center, if one server goes down, whatever was running on their data center on that particular server is taken over by the next server in the same data center, right? And it can do it quickly because these are placed in the same infrastructure. Disaster recovery is something where a disaster has happened, right? So if there a particular city, goes out of electricity, what we are seeing in Texas nowadays, right? Or if there's a natural calamity somewhere, so the same infrastructure, whatever it is, all the servers would be down. And even if you have something very nearby, probably that data center is also down. So disaster recovery is a concept where when something like this happens, you would be taken over by another data center which is far, far, far at a distance, right? How do you do these replications? How do you actually shift your users from that data center to another data center? I mean, all these concepts go into disaster recovery, and cloud computing vendors give you that flexibility. That is what you sign. You sign that I will be 99.9999%, five nines, nine nines percentage I will be served, which means there's only 1 minute or maybe few seconds in a year that I can go down, but not beyond that. So that is how stringent it is. You have automatic software updates, right? You have a lot of automation that goes behind. You don't need to take care of any kind of updates that happens. So all of us use mobile phones where you have those apps and you can always configure that those updates happens automatically. Here in cloud computing also, any third-party applications that you're using, any open source that you're using, the vendors gives you the tools that, okay, if there's any new version that comes up, you can automatically be serviced. Your software can get updated. I mean, those kind of things can be configured. Pay as you go, we already talked about. Increased collaboration. These are, these benefits comes around with anything which is centralized, right? And cloud computing is one of it. So that comes inherent. Document control. That is again, it gives you a flavor that the user who is using it, that user can actually control the infrastructure or control anything around that infrastructure. Security. We do see security as a kind of a challenge in cloud computing, but it is also a benefit. It's kind of a mindset. We have heard about a lot of data breaches that happens. What would happen if there's any sensitive data that I'm uploading to cloud and that infrastructure doesn't belong to me? What would happen at that time? What are the tools that takes care of any kind of phishing or any kind of security breaches? How I can make the vendor accountable for any loss that I might suffer because of security breach? But I have actually put it in the benefit as well, because big vendors, who are actually giving you this flexibility of cloud computing, they have so many tools around it. They have so many, so many monitoring aspects. They are always up to date in terms of, keeping their data centers and their operating systems and any layer, any security layer, absolutely up to date. If you actually do it yourself, you will never be able to do it, right? And now it is not a choice that you are not connected to the world. If you have a choice where you can remain disconnected, of course nobody can approach you, and if nobody can approach you, you would not have any data leakage or any security lapse, through your internet. Of course, but it is not a choice. So the choices are either you build yourself and then you get connected, or the choices that you go to cloud computing benefits, and then in that choice you get a layer which is already so secure. You cannot build that layer on your own unless you are too big or you are very big. And we'll see there are enterprises, there are companies who are very big, who have their own data centers, like Salesforce, right? Dr. Ritika talked about the CEO of Salesforce, right? Mark Benioff. Now, Salesforce has its own data centers. They don't go to AWS, they don't go to Azure, they don't go to any other those popular public clouds. They have their own data centers and they are using cloud computing, right? So if you are that big kind of a Salesforce, of course you can make your own security arrangements. But if you are not, if you are a startup, if you are you want to leverage what is happening in the industry, it's better that you start using the infrastructure that's provided. Location independent, I mean, it goes hand in hand, because it doesn't matter from where you are actually accessing it. It doesn't matter from where you are getting it served. I mean, everything is location independent. Now, there's okay, so we'll talk about that a little later. Yeah. History of cloud computing, very briefly, we all know this. It started with mainframe. And I did talk about those mainframe computers. They were so big, you have to put it in a room. And then, John McCarthy, he's the person who came up with the concept of time sharing. How do you enable multiple users to use it? Then, towards the 70s, we came to a concept of ARPANET. ARPANET was the starting point of internet, right? Internet came sometime in, I think, 1980s or 1990s, specifically the TCP/IP protocol. But ARPANET was where, it started in 1969. The virtualization software was launched by IBM in 70s. Now, these are all the evolution layer of cloud computing, right? This is how it was enabled. Then the word was coined in 1997. So it dates back to 2 decades, right? And this word was coined by Professor Ramnath. He was a professor in University of Texas, I think, in US. So he actually came up with this concept, and that has evolved. In 1999, Salesforce came in, right? And you would see in this chart only Salesforce and nobody else being mentioned, right? From a perspective of using cloud computing, because they are big. They are the one who actually started using this concept, on themselves. They created their own data centers. They have to be accessible to everybody in the world. I mean, that goes hand in hand. And they created a concept of CRM as a service. So you might have heard about those jargons: as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. These are basics, right? But now we hear anything as a service, XaaS, right? Disaster recovery as a service, backup as a service. So similarly, Salesforce at that time came up with the concept of as a service. So it goes a little further from cloud computing, where whatever services you're giving, which is not infrastructure, which is not a kind of a software, there is a particular domain, there's a particular area which you are specializing, and you are giving that specialization as a service. Just the way consultants work, right? So consultants have an area of specialization. They just say that, okay, if you need my consultancy, you have to pay me by per hour, right? This is the whole concept. Here, Salesforce says that, if you need the expertise on CRM, which is customer relationship management, all the tooling around it, all the concepts around it, I can provide you as a service, right? So there is where the concept came from. And then Amazon launched their EC2 environment, Elastic Compute Cloud, and their storage services in 2006. That was a starting point where big enterprises actually came in. And after Amazon, Google came in, Microsoft came in. I think they came in 2010 or somewhere around it, right? And that is how this created the entire ecosystem. Until and unless there are big players in the industry who are actually backing up a particular concept, things doesn't go the way. And they come in because they see business opportunities, right? So that is how it evolved. And today in 2020, 2021, we see it as $266 billion cloud service market, right? And it is growing. It is growing at a rate of 30%, more than 30%. Now, this is a particular slide which will actually address a specific issue, right? We did talk about so many things in the earlier slides. Now, here's a concept, and you actually see this this problem in your day-to-day life, right? Now, when you do an estimation, and it could be any estimation in your business, even when you do an estimation that how much footfall I would have in my shop, you do an estimation, you create your shop according to you think that there will be 100 users at a particular time. Sorry, okay, there was a ping. So you actually do an estimation before you start any business, right? Now, you don't want to underestimate, because you don't want to lose revenues. You don't want to lose any user. If there's 101 user, probably you can squeeze in that user a little bit, right? But if there are 200 users and you're provisioned for 100, then you are actually losing revenue. You're losing revenue, you're losing business, but you're losing credibility. And that is the big thing. You're losing credibility because the next time the user would come to your shop, he cannot be assured that he would be serviced. It could be that there are already 100 users and he would not be allowed to come into the shop. It could be that, okay, there are not many and he's allowed. So these kind of a kind of this doesn't create that user experience, right? Where I'm not sure whether it will be served or not. So that is a concept that goes in every business. And how does cloud computing solve it? So if you have, we did see that cloud computing is more about, okay, you can rent out a server if you need, you can pay as you go, but there is another area that where you provision a particular capacity of your server based on what you estimate. But there can be eventualities, right? There can be spikes, there can be a particular seasonal demand, right, which can vary, and either you have to provision based on the maximum capacity that you are estimating, or what you can do is that you can actually provision your capacity based on something that you see as an average. So you see an average that I will have 4 or 5 servers and I can serve the users and average number of users. But if there's a seasonal demand, you can shift that demand or the capacity that is required to serve that demand to cloud computing, right? So all these toolings are there. So the peaks can be sliced off, and these peaks can be actually given to the cloud computing vendors. And it is that dynamic that on the fly you can actually create those virtual machines. You can ask for those servers, and you don't lose any revenue. So your capacity actually moves with how much is the demand, right? And that is the best solution that you can have in your business, where you don't have to have that fixed price to provision. Right. So cloud comes with many advantages. It comes with some pitfalls as well. I will not actually call it that pitfalls, because industry has evolved a long way, in addressing all of these pitfalls, whether it is downtime. Downtime is specifically outages. Security, I did talk about security, how we address security. Vendor lock-in. This is a good concept. What does a vendor lock-in mean? Is that if I am on Amazon Web Services, so there are big public cloud vendors, right? Amazon Web Service is one, Google Cloud is another, Microsoft Azure is another, IBM Cloud is another, and there are many small players as well. So when I actually host my application on a particular cloud, can I move that application from that cloud to another cloud? That is a big question people are asking. Now, if I am actually logged into that vendor and somehow I am not serviced well, or I have other reasons to actually move from that cloud vendor to another cloud vendor, right? Can I actually do it very easily? Will there be a cost attached to it, or I have to actually re-architect myself or do a lot of changes and so on? So that's a big concept, and industry has addressed it a long way. Privacy and confidentiality. I am hosting my data on somebody's else infrastructure. I always will have that kind of apprehension that whether the data sensitive data I'm actually uploading, whether it is actually secure or not, right? And maybe you are not even the owner of that data. That data could be your end user's data, and you had signed a contract with your end user where you would not, by in any circumstances, leak that data. So you are accountable for something, but you are using the services of some other vendor, and therefore all these apprehensions comes in, right? So these are the areas that you have to work on. Bandwidth, because everything lies in the cloud, there is nothing on your infrastructure. You need to have very good bandwidth to access it. And with the boom in in fiber optics and different infrastructure, data infrastructure, this is already resolved, right? So today everybody of us has broadband in their home. They are being serviced by so many fat pipes, fiber optics and whatnot. So this is an area which has actually evolved along as well. Compliance, of course, as a business standard, I have to be compliant to many things. Those compliant could be, those could be government's compliance. You might have heard about data localization, right? Where government, lot of governments, including in India, in US, in Europe, everywhere, there are a lot of compliance standards that comes in. So if I host it on the other cloud infrastructure, whether I will be able to be compliant with this, right? You might have heard about GDPR compliance, which has come as an EU standard. You might have heard about, data localization compliance. There are so many things, right? So many standards that come from time to time. So there's always an area where we have to work on. Migration complexity, when we migrate from your on-premise is where you actually on your local server to the cloud, what are the complexities that comes in? So these are the areas, everybody has to work on and see, there are, of course, all the solutions around, but we need to be aware of that. Yeah, we need to take care of it. Cloud security, that's big thing again, and these statistics actually give you the reason, why a lot of companies are still reluctant to actually go to cloud. As I said, many things have been resolved, but there are still, when you actually do a survey, there are 61% companies says that, compliance, the regulation compliance is a major barrier because they are not sure whether they will be compliant or not. Of course, expertise in IT professionals, that is an area that we have to evolve, right? And the threats, the cyber attacks that you see, and I have a slide where we can actually see the recent threats or recent cyber breaches that we have. There is an increasing number of threats per month that is coming in. So you need to have a very secure environment. But whatever said, we have come a long way solving these issues. These are the survey results, that has been compiled by some analysts, and just to show you, what is the perception of industry. Yeah, so these are the examples you see, and maybe some of these you have already heard about, and this is very recent in 2020. There has been cyber attacks in MGM Hotel. MGM Hotel is a big chain of hotels in US, specifically in Vegas areas and so on. Cognizant, and they had to actually, there was a ransomware cyber attack, and they had to, shell out some money to actually, get back their data. California University, even WHO had some cyber attacks, where there's some email addresses and passwords stolen. And Zoom, right? So Zoom app, we have been, using it with the pandemic in this virtual world. This has been used in so many schools and in private meetings and so on. But you might have heard about stories that, and they call them as Zoom bombing, right? So you might have heard about there are users who can actually get into those rooms and with bad intentions or whatever disruptions they have been doing, right? There are few examples, but these are areas that we have to work on. So we do see these attacks, happening from time to time. Now, this was all, that we talked about what cloud computing is, what are the pitfalls, advantages, and what to take care when you're actually moving it. But there are different models around it, right? So I'll very quickly move around. What are these models? You have basic 3 models, but again, as I said, there are many things beyond this. So the one model is infrastructure as a service, where you can rent out the infrastructure, which is the hardware, and then you have all the all the capability, or you get an access to do whatever you want to do with that hardware, just as if it was a server at your home or at your data center, right? You can deploy databases, you can do all the integrations, and you can create applications and host on it. So that's an infrastructure as a service, because you are renting out infrastructure. Then you have a concept of platform as a service, where everything is managed by the vendor, including the operating system, including the platform. But then you can create those applications. Now, interestingly, recently these have actually evolved, because infrastructure as a service is more required by startups, who want to rent out, just as if when they actually go to start their office, they rent out an office on lease, they don't buy it, right? Similarly, they want to rent the servers on the cloud, and they don't want to buy it. So it's more prevalent there, but platform as a service is prevalent in the development world, right? The developers. So you might see a lot of platforms that have come up now, any big vendors like, examples could be Google App Engine, right? Examples could be even Salesforce. So Salesforce earlier was a software, a CRM as a service, as we talked, right? But even Salesforce have come up with a platform, and they give you a kind of a software development environment where you can create an application. You can create an application on your own and you can host it. So this concept has actually grown, and this concept is evolving, because of various business reasons. And then you have a software as a service where you host your software, and the vendor hosts it. You are just using it, just like Gmail, Facebook, WhatsApp. All these are software as a service. In terms of deployment model, either you can be on public cloud, and these are examples like Amazon or Azure. You can, buy or rent out services from them. You could be on private cloud. You can create your own data center and move it to the cloud or make it accessible to others so that it is on the cloud. And then you can have a combined as well. A lot of companies are actually going with hybrid cloud concept, where the data sensitive areas are put on private. They still have it on their own infrastructure, and the other layer, which is maybe emails or tools around, they put it on the cloud, on the public. So that's the hybrid cloud infrastructure. Right, so this is just a summary. So we have 3 kinds of deployment models, 3 kinds of service models, and we did mention each of these. These are the examples on the public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. We also have a community cloud, which is kind of a hybrid cloud, but since it is restricted in the community, it is known as a community cloud. And the examples on SaaS, as I was saying, Google Apps, even WhatsApp, Facebook are all SaaS. Platform as a service are specifically, Google App Engine, Windows, Azure also had this. Hadoop is a platform which, you can develop applications around it. And then infrastructure as a service, there are so many examples, Amazon Web Services or Azure, even AT&T and Sun Microsystem. And this is very interesting. AT&T and Sun Microsystem has their own infrastructure as a service, which they normally use it for their own users, right? But they still call it as an IaaS because they have data centers all over the world. And these data centers are mainly used to service themselves, but still, it is a concept of IaaS. Yeah, this is about the ecosystem, right? So in a cloud computing market ecosystem, you will see 3 kind of providers. One who actually does the integration for, who are the consultants, teams like Capgemini. We come from Capgemini. Altran is acquired by Capgemini. So team like Capgemini, Accenture, Infosys, TCS. Now they are the consultants who are actually doing the integration work, right? Who are doing the system integration. And then there's a layer which actually provides the SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS, which is VMware or Salesforce or Amazon EC2s and so on. And then there are the providers and the OEMs, right? People like AT&T, Vodafone, they give you the data layer, they give you the connectivity. IBMs, they give you actually the infrastructure around it and so on. So this slide actually tells you where each of these enterprises or each of these companies actually lie. What is the area where they overlap, and how they are placed based on their expertise. If you are interested, this slide would actually give you some links where you can try out. Go to AWS. You can create free accounts. I think it is for 12 months, and you have some limitations there, but still you can create your own infrastructure, very small infrastructures, but you'll see that suddenly you have something to actually work on, right, on the cloud. So this is all free services by AWS as a marketing. So just go and try to explore. The 3 providers I'm just looking on. Yeah, we just have a few minutes. So as a market, cloud market share, AWS is the major vendor. Amazon Web Services is the major vendor. We have Microsoft Azure, we have Google Cloud. These are the 3 vendors who are in the top layer. But very interestingly, things are changing a little bit. Microsoft Azure is very aggressive in this market. They are doing tie-ups with so many other server vendors like IBM and Cisco and so on. So they are expanding, right? They are taking up a little bit share from AWS, but things are placed like this. AWS is a major vendor right now. It's a big market. As I said, it's more than $30,000 million, and it's growing at 30-35% already. Some popular apps that you might have seen, Facebook. So Facebook is hosted on their own data center, right? And we don't call it a data center, we still call it as a cloud hosted, because that data center is a private cloud, right? They don't give it to anybody else, but it is on cloud. WhatsApp is hosted on IBM software before it was taken over by Facebook. Now, once Facebook took over WhatsApp, they have moved it to Facebook data center, but earlier it was on IBM cloud. Salesforce has its own cloud, right? They are also a big cloud vendor. They normally do it only to serve their own platforms. Google Cloud is hosted on Google Cloud, of course. And just go to and try Google searching. You will find all your popular apps, and you will see where are those hosted. Maybe it's an interesting exercise. You might want to see what are the popular apps that are hosted on AWS and so on. So this is just to give you some motivation to do a searching. Best maybe 1 minute I'll take this as well. So there's a typo here. I've just put Facebook. There's not Facebook. So when any business actually moves from your on-premise, which they host on their data center, to cloud, there are 4 layers or the four steps actually they take, right? So one is where they want to force fit on the cloud, right? And they are not using the full functionality of cloud. So and we call it as cloud washed. So from cloud washed to cloud native, all the business wants to move to the right, because the best position you could be that you are cloud native, you are fully cloud aware, your design and your architecture is in a way where you are taking care of, or you're leveraging all the functionalities, right? It is just not about hosting, right? It is also about being elastic, being resource efficient, having the high availability, having a kind of a layer which can integrate with other vendors and so on. So this actually gives you a kind of a maturity model, application maturity model. Any company who moves from on-premise to cloud, they want to see that where they are exactly and how they can move to the right. And that is the step every IT company or every IT team does. This gives you a little perspective of, there's still a lot of business that all the companies want a share of. There's only 20% workloads that have moved to cloud. There's still 80% that are moving, and there's a huge growth market. Now, maybe a couple of minutes on containers. We did talk about virtual machines and how virtual machines have enabled cloud computing. Now there's a concept of containers that are coming up. Containers is again not a technology, right? Just like cloud computing. If you actually see what goes beneath containers, these things we have already seen for decades, right? It is a packaging together. It is coming together of all these concepts and creating a solution, right? And when we actually look into containers, this is enabling cloud computing more. And why? That is the reason why I put this in this slide, because going into that concept, it is actually opening up a lot of areas where cloud computing can benefit you more. I don't have time to actually go into depth of containers, but if you want, you can actually read about it, how it motivates more businesses to move to cloud computing, what benefits actually gives you, and how it actually pairs up with cloud computing concepts. So I'll come to the end of my session, right? As a summary, we just see we just discussed about cloud computing, what exactly different models are, what are the benefits, what are the pitfalls, right? What are the service models and deployment models we have? How can we migrate to the cloud? And it is a big area of digital transformation, right? Every company, even if it is government, any company which has been in the market for so long, they are going towards digital transformation, and moving to cloud is part of that digital transformation, right? We should be able to understand the readiness of our applications to move to cloud, and containers is the next wave to exploit virtualization, right? It will enable and open up more areas where we can get benefits. So thank you for listening in. I hope this was a session which was helpful for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. It was a wonderful as well as informative session, and I'm sure it has participants about the future as well as the challenges ahead. There are some queries by the participants which I would take up now with your permission.
Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. So the first question that we have, a participant would like to know, in disaster recovery, how much of the structure can we actually recover, and is complete recovery actually possible?
Yeah, it is possible. So there are, and disaster recovery is a concept which, again, as I said, we can go for hours in that. So there are, you get what you pay for, right? So there are areas where the disaster recovery, you are actually running a workload which is not mission critical. You can actually, you can accommodate some outage maybe for a few minutes, for a few seconds. So the technology around that kind of disaster recovery is different, right? But if it is very mission critical, human lives are involved, or it is kind of extreme business implications are involved, then there are technologies where the disaster recovery is as simple as that you don't even see it, right? And these are like kind of active. I mean, just to give you a flavor, if you can just go and search these concepts. So disaster recovery could be that one of your site where you are hosting your infrastructure, and there's another site which is which is taking care of as a kind of a backup. These two are together, always in sync, right? So anything you do on the first side, that is getting replicated on the other side. So if the first side goes down, the second side can take care of within milliseconds, right? So the concepts are there, and that is called as active, or kind of a hot standby. There are concepts where it is active passive, which means that the first side is active, it is serving you, but in case that goes down, the second side will take a little time to come up, right? It understands it is already synced up with the first side, but it is not in hot standby. It will take some time to come up. So all those kind of concepts are there, and we have in industry, we have reached a level where we sign with our customers that what is the what is the recovery time, right? What is the recovery time, and what is the point of recovery? These are jargons, they call it as RTO and RPO. What is the recovery time, and what is the recovery point? Recovery time could be even few milliseconds, and recovery point could be that I don't have even one bit of data which is lost.
Yes, thank you, Deepak. Another quick question. We are short of time, so we'll take just a few more quick questions. So another question that we have from one of our participants, which are the free and best cloud services for IoT?
Yeah, so for IoT, IoT is I mean, that is the concept which goes with devices, right? Now, when you actually talk about IoT, right, Internet of Things, most of the time you are talking about enabling your devices to actually connect together, right? Now, see, since these devices are exactly, maybe these are wearables, right? These devices could be something which has been enabled to connect to world, but it is actually a physically available. So there is a concept for called edge computing, right? So where your devices together, if they are using cloud computing, because your devices are not residing on a server, right? Your devices are on your customer's premises or somewhere which is I mean physically available, right? But to connect them together or to analyze all the data together, because all the millions of devices, when they are actually giving you the data, the cloud computing concepts comes in where you want to analyze that data. Now there, it is same as where you would actually host your analytics layer on a particular vendor. It can be any vendor, Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud or wherever. So you collect and collate all the data and do the analysis. And if you have to give the feedback to any particular device, you can do it from there, right? So what I'm trying to say is that these devices connected together and getting the data collated, that is the cloud computing portion, and you can use any kind of a vendor for that, right? But there's another concept called edge computing. You can go and search about it, where these devices can give the data. This cloud computing concepts comes on the edge. It should not be that my watch, which is an IoT device, it has to give all the data, and these data is going to a data center which is in the US, right? Because these devices could be anywhere. So there's a concept of edge computing. But to answer your point, you can select any vendor. IoT is I mean, cloud computing is not specific to IoT, right? It is collation of data, and that you can do anywhere.
Thank you, Deepak. It was a wonderful session. And with your knowledge on cloud computing, this session is too short to actually cover all the queries and have all the information from you. So without wasting time, I will first request Professor M.N. Huda, Director, Bharatiya Vidyapeeth, Institute of Computer Applications and Management, to kindly present you with the certificate simply as a token of remembrance. Sir, please.
Yeah, so Mr. Deepak, this certificate is not for the purpose of certification, is to remind you that you have been part of this lovely webinar on cloud, which is every coming day is an evolving subject, and very nicely you have covered it. So congratulations to you and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
I would now also request Professor A.K. Saini, Vice President, CSI and IIT, and Dean, University School of Management Studies, GGS IPU, to kindly propose his vote of thanks.
Thank you, Ritika. I think it was wonderful being a part of this webinar, in which I also learned a few things. We must be thankful to Mr. Deepak for sparing valuable time and sharing with all the participants a wonderful knowledge. In fact, we all know that the pandemic has taught us one good thing, and that is the digital transformation, how to really adopt technology and deploy technology for the benefit of all. So cloud computing primarily plays a very vital role when you talk of digital transformation, because it provides you the advantage of being a scalable technology, and it is easily adaptable also. Hardware requirements also come down appreciably. So you see that the flexibility which it offers, so it has a lot of advantages, but at the same time it has certain issues to be handled, like bandwidth is one of the major issues which need to be looked at. I think this webinar has brought out all these issues, and all the participants actually have been made aware about how do we go about adopting the cloud as a solution for all of us. So I, on behalf of the organizers, which actually have been providing that knowledge sharing to all of us during this pandemic time, to these online webinars, I must compliment them also, as well as thank all the participants, our resource person, Deepak ji, for sparing his time and sharing with us, all of us, the wonderful knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Saini.
Yes.
For having delivered vote of thanks. It's our privilege to have Mr. R.K. Vyas, the President, Computer Society of India. So he was supposed to give the welcome address, but because of some unavoidable circumstances, he joined late. So may I request Professor Vyas also to enlighten us on this subject, a very apt subject, cloud computing. Professor Vyas.
Good evening, Professor Huda. Good evening, Professor Saini. Good evening, Deepak ji. Unfortunately, I could not hear you most of the time, but whatever I could hear, I think the cloud and the edge computing, which Professor Saini has already highlighted, the things which you have already spoken, is the talk of the day. And hopefully with this knowledge sharing session will also help all the attendees, which are basically the research scholars and the faculty members of various institutes across the country. So these words, I would say I could have joined, but just now I've reached my home. I had a talk with Professor Huda, so whenever I reach, I'll connect and say hello to you all. And thanks to Professor Huda and his team for conducting such type of webinars, all during from last, I think, 8 to 9 months. We have been on every Friday, some webinar is there on the latest topic, and people are being acknowledging the needs of these type of webinars, and the Professor Huda and his team has been doing it for all these things. And thanks to you all. Thank you, Professor Deepak ji, for enlightening us on this occasion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Vyas. And thank you so much to all my friends, Mr. Bhatia, and all my friends, Professor Subrata, who is still here, all the participants from different parts of the country. As I said in the beginning, that when participants keep on writing me on my WhatsApp, why this week webinar was not organized, it gives me so much of satisfaction and gives us so much of motivation that no, the weekly series must continue. Last month in January, we made it on alternate weeks, that is once in 2 weeks. But now the weekly series will continue to the extent possible. So thank you so much. Now this meeting room is converted into a call center. Dr. Ritika and the entire team members, Mr. Uttam and other members are there to resolve your queries, if any, related to certificates, after which this will be closed. And if you have not registered for our forthcoming webinars, 3 of these webinars have already been made live. That is on disruptive technologies. The first is on disruptive technologies. On 26th of February, the second is on quantum computing by Mr. Pavan Kulkarni on 5th of March. And the third is on digital transformation, which Professor Saini was mentioning just now on 12th of March. If you have not registered, these webinar registrations are open. You may please register it. Thank you so much and hope to see you in next webinar. In between, if you are having any query, you may get it resolved in the same meeting room by writing your queries in the chat window for the purpose of your certifications. Please note that if you do not fill up the feedback form, our team members won't be in a position to help you out. So your first requirement is to fill up the feedback form, and the entire process of generating certificate is automated again using Google Cloud. Using that Google Cloud, this certification is going to happen. So once you submit the feedback form, and you are not getting feedback in time, ideally the PDF form of that certificate should be emailed. You should receive the email attachment of the certificate. If you are not getting it, team members will locate why the problem is. So that's what we can resolve. If you are not filling feedback form, nothing can be done. Thank you so much and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Professor.
So much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I once again thank Deepak. Thank you so much for this wonderful session. I also take this opportunity to thank all my distinguished panelists, Professor Saini, Professor Vyas, Professor Subrata, and Professor Bhatia sir, who have taken time out and joined today us for this wonderful session on cloud computing. A big thank you to all my dear participants also who have joined us on this auspicious day. I hope all of you have received the feedback link and are submitting your feedback form for today's session. In case after submitting your feedback form, you do not receive your certificate in your inbox, we are there to help you out. Kindly write your mail ID in the chat window with all the share it with all the panelists. We shall look into it. So thank you all dear participants. A few participants are saying invalid dynamic link. The link is absolutely working, dear participants. I would request you, please click on the link and it will redirect you to the form. Uttam sir, Payal Priyadarshini ma'am has shared her email ID. I suppose we'll have to check for the certificate. Thank you, Dr. Hussain. Thank you, Dr. Hussain. It was wonderful having you. We hope you will join us back on 16th Feb for our next webinar. I'm sorry,
I'm not.
on 26th Feb for our
I'm
next
not.
webinar on disruptive technologies.
Ma'am, Payal Priyadarshini ma'am's feedback is not found in chat window. Oh, sorry, in sheet.
Payal Priyadarshini ma'am, kindly submit your feedback form unless and until you submit your feedback form, we'll not be able to help you out. I am again sharing the feedback form link in the chat window for the benefit of our participants. Few participants are complaining they haven't received the link. Thank you, dear participants. It was wonderful hosting all of you. I hope you will be back with us again on 26th of Feb.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much, sir. Your blessings are always important.
It comes from the top and I pass on. Okay, so we can log out.
Uttam sir, Prashakhi Das sir has a complaint with the URL. I hope you can look into the message and maybe you can help him out. He is reporting a dynamic link error.
उन्होंने फुल स्टॉप भी जो है वो कॉपी कर लिया होगा, प्लीज उनसे रिक्वेस्ट कर लीजिए कि वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ लिंक को क्लिक करें.
Okay. Prashakhi Das sir, really, I apologize for the trouble caused, but I request you kindly simply click on the link. The fault that is happening is most probably you have copied the full stop along. So I request kindly simply click on the link. Many participants are able to generate their certificate. So you shall also be able to generate your certificate. It's great to see we even have school students who are joining our sessions. So I am actually sure that the information is, the knowledge is disseminating far and wide. Yes, sir, if you have received your certificate, you're most welcome to log out. Thank you so much for being part of this session. We hope you will join us back again on 26th March. After you have submitted the feedback, kindly check your inbox, the mail ID which you have submitted in the feedback form. Within 10 minutes, you will receive your certificate in the given mail ID. Thank you, dear participants. Our next webinar on 26th Feb is on disruptive technologies and evolving global society. I hope you will all join us back for the same. Ma'am, I have already shared the link for the next webinar registration. I am resharing it again in the chat window. You can just go to that particular link and there is a registration button for all our next webinars. You can click on that and you can register yourself for our upcoming webinars. I have again shared the link in the chat window. Thank you, dear participants. It was wonderful hosting you all. I hope you all join us back on 26th Feb for our next webinar. Kindly fill the feedback form. Until and unless you fill the feedback form, we will not be able to help you with your certificate. Thank you, dear participants. Your appreciation motivates us to go further. Keep joining us for our upcoming webinars.